In this final exercise, I'm going to show you how to put together a custom color palette that you can use to trace a portrait photograph. Now, it involves a little bit of labor, as it turns out. I've done most of the work for you in this case, in the case of this exercise. But when you actually attempt this yourself, get ready for a little bit of work. But it's definitely worth it. Now, let me show you what's wrong with this particular tracing here. I'm working inside of a document, incidentally, if you're just joining me, called mutedcolors.ai. That's available inside of the 18 Live Trace folder. And I've named it Muted Colors because the colors are awfully muted. Now, you may look at this tracing and say, well, I'm not sure the colors are all that muted. We'll check it out here. I'll go up to the control palette and I'll switch this first pyramid, this black sort of jagged pyramid here. I'll change it to original image so we can see the original version of the image underneath the trace. And then I'll go ahead and change the trace setting to no tracing result, so that we can see the image by itself. And did you see those colors pick up there? Much more vibrant, much more red as well, so more ruddy, more fleshy. So this is the tracing result, more muted, more yellow, more jaundiced. Not nearly as good. And what's happening here is all of this hair is really informing the face colors. And so is the background. This orange background is informing the face as well. So we need to override that somehow. And here's what I did. All right, so I'll go ahead and change the setting to no tracing result once again so we can see the original photograph. I lifted colors. I lifted my own colors using the eyedropper. I lifted my own colors and put them inside of the swatches palette right there. So you see the colors that I'm suggesting we use, and they actually work out pretty well. But here's how I assembled them. You get the eyedropper tool, and then you click on a representative color. For example, something like this forehead right here, forehead color. Go ahead and click on it in order to load that color as a swatch. And then go over to the swatches palette, and I suggest you alt-click or option-click on this new swatch icon. The reason I'm alt-clicking or option-clicking is so that I bypass the dialog box, so I'm not asked to name it every single time I create a swatch, because otherwise you're going to do a lot of naming. And there's no reason to name these swatches. Just go ahead and get them into the swatches palette. And then you might want to load something that's nice and red, like this pink eye makeup right there that sort of matches her lips as well. And then go ahead and alt-click to load that. And you'd load this eye color, this sort of bluish eye color that's lacking from the traced artwork we saw just a moment ago. Go ahead and lift that and alt-click or option-click on the little new icon in order to load it into the swatches palette, and so on and so on. So you want to assemble a bunch of representative colors, right? You need some dark colors, you need some light colors, you need that little bit of blue right there. That's the inside of the eye that I made. That color right there is her eye color, the iris color. So I lifted it from this region. And you don't have to lift a very specific color. You just need to lift a general color from that region. But you don't want to ignore the hair, and you don't want to ignore the oranges in the background. So you have to figure out how to lift good colors here and there inside the illustration. And that's where the work is involved, is finding the good colors. You need to have a little bit of an eye, and you need to experiment, is basically what it comes down to. But I have done the labor for you right here. So let's just go ahead and put it in play. I'm going to go ahead and select these three colors that I just added a moment ago because they'll kind of mess things up if we use them. And I'll throw them away by alt-clicking or option-clicking on a trash can. Here's what we need to do. We need to take these color swatches from the swatches palette and generate an independent swatch library. And to do that, you click on that brown and then shift-click on the white in order to select that range of colors right there. You should have 27 colors selected in all if you want to count them. But really, you don't need to. Just make sure you don't have none or registration selected, and you're good to go. Then, I want you to click on the Swatch Libraries menu icon right there and choose Save Swatches. And you'll be invited to save these swatches off to a specific folder. Go ahead and save to that folder. Don't hunt around your system for a different folder on your hard drive. Go ahead and save to this specific swatches folder because that's the folder that Illustrator likes to use. And you're going to be saving an AI file, an Adobe Illustrator file, so a standard Illustrator file. I want you to name this file Alexandra Colors after the photographer. And then go ahead and click the Save button in order to save off that color palette. So that won't take any time. Now you need to load the color palette into Illustrator. Even though those colors are sitting right there inside the swatches palette, that's not good enough. You need to load them inside of a separate palette by going to this option once again, choosing User Defined, and then choosing Alexandra Colors. Should be the only one that's available there, unless you've created your own swatches in the past. And then you'll load this independent palette, as we're seeing right there. All right, so I'll make my thumbnails a little bigger so that we can see them all, and I'll drag this over so that we can see every single one of the colors inside of this wonderful palette that's available to us. Now let's apply the palette to the scanned artwork. I'm going to bring up the tracing result once again by choosing it from the white pyramid here inside of the control palette. And then we're going to revisit our setting. So click on the tracing options button. This assumes, of course, that the tracing is active, that it's meatballed here inside of the layers palette, as it is for me. Go ahead and click on the button in order to bring up the tracing options. And let's go ahead and switch palettes from automatic. All the other settings are just fine as is. Switch the palette from automatic to Alexander colors. As I was telling you in a previous exercise, you probably won't see earth tone or ice cream. Those are palettes that I've loaded in the past. All right, so choose Alexander colors. It should be available to you. Max colors is set to 27 by default, so you can't override that because there are just 27 colors inside of this palette. Then turn on the preview checkbox in order to see how much better this palette works. Now, it's not going to look exactly perfect. I'll warn you about that, but it's going to look a heck of a lot better than it does now, which is the key, of course, to everything. Notice how much it warms up on screen here. All right, so much better using this palette, I think. We're done. Go ahead and click on the trace button in order to apply your settings. All right, so here's before, muted colors, very yellow, as you can see here. And here's after, beautiful, bright, vivid, warm flesh tones. A few interesting details as well here. These yellow streaks in the hair and a couple of green streaks in the hair as well that are coming from the iris. That's just fine. Of course, I could fix those using that live paint feature as I showed you a few exercises ago. This is portrait photography traced inside of Adobe Illustrator, and there's more to come, folks. In the next chapter, we are going to explore the world of live paint, and after that, we'll see the world of live color here inside Illustrator CS3.